Lauren Dalberth is one of the founders and directors of Weaving Earth. And it's a project, it's an educational project, it's a cultural regeneration project. They're involved in permaculture, sustainability. They teach all ages from very young 5-year-olds all the way up to adults. And they have numerous programs. They work out of Northern California, just north of San Francisco. Most of their work happens up there. And I have also the privilege of having some of my own former students enrolled there. And so I get to kind of hear firsthand what they're doing up there. But Lauren also has been a student of John Young's for many years and is very steeped in the models that we use as part of our nature connection work and our cultural mentoring work. So I get the opportunity to turn it over to Lauren and hear from her. So Lauren Dalberth, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. I heard about the timelines, and I'm really glad I got to experience that. So thank you for that. And it's actually the perfect intro because I want to get to the great turning and then where to from here. So thank you for that. But first, I just want to say hi, good evening. It's good to see you all here. Some familiar faces, though they have beards now. Like Paul said, my name's Lauren, and I'm originally from New Jersey, and I also spent a lot of my young years in Pennsylvania. And my ancestors are from Russia and Italy, and a couple in Scotland. So it feels important to bring my lineage in because their stories come with me. So, part of my frame of reference comes from that history. So that's where I come from, and my Hebrew name means Liba. I was named after my grandmother Lillian, my mom's mother, and in the Jewish tradition, you don't name the exact name, you just do the initials. So she was Lillian Berg, and I became Lauren Brooke. My Hebrew name's Liba, and it relates to the word heart. And so heart has been, for everybody probably, it's a really strong guiding force for me. So I really do my best to live from the heart and speak from the heart. So may that go well tonight as well. And then recently, in 2011, I got married to a wonderful man named Dalberth Hage, who some of you probably know. And he's Norwegian, and his last name is Hage, which means garden. Although up until about 2 weeks ago, I thought it meant to garden, but apparently maybe it means both. I don't know. But so I transitioned in that marriage from this dedication to heart to also this dedication to garden the heart. So I really feel that that's my work, and what I'm here to do is to garden the heart. And so Weaving Earth is founded and co-founded with that as a piece to the puzzle. Is what is it to truly garden the heart of the self, of the community, and in relationship with the earth. So, that's me, that's where I came from. And I'm really thankful to be here. If there is, so far, my witness comment all day has been, wow, you are all really good at welcoming. I feel so welcomed. So I'm thankful for that. And let's see, I want to begin a little bit more with my story. When I was in 10th grade, which in what, 1 minute from now there'll be a 10th grade? Is that what it is? There's no 10th grade yet, right? So when I was in 10th grade, I took this environmental science class. And the joke around my family is, oh, she likes nature and we all like malls. Like, they're kind of like, where did you come from? But we grew up at the beach, and that's what I always reflect back to my mom. She taught me how to body surf in the water, and when she steps onto the beach, I just watch what it does to her body and the way that she reads the waves and all of these things. So I'm just like, you're not fooling me, Mom. You're deeply rooted to the earth too. And part of it is the remembering. But anyway, so I was in 10th grade and I took this environmental science class, and they said, choose a book. They gave us a really long list and write a book report. So I just randomly chose the book Ishmael because I liked the title. Has anyone read that book? Yeah, raise them high if you have. Okay, so that book was so life-changing for me at that time. And I read it, and then I wrote this report, and my report was all about how I felt like we are nature, and we are all connected, and there is no difference. And I don't know what I said when I was in 10th grade. It was probably a little bit idealistic, but it felt really true. And when I got the paper back from the teacher, in red ink, at the top of the page it said A+, very well written. I just wanted you all to know that I got an A+, so it's okay. No, but it said A+, very well written. And then in red ink, and I will remember this image forever, it was on the other side of the page, and it says, "This is extreme, isn't it?" in red. And I thought, this is extreme? Like, I couldn't understand why it was extreme that we are all connected to the natural world. We are nature also. I didn't understand it. And that one line was so instrumental, and it's been a guiding question for me, continued, but for my whole life is, well, is it actually extreme that we are not separate from nature? And that question has been a guiding force, and has been both kind of moments of depression and sadness in there, exploring that question and hearing what people had to say in response, and also really hopeful. So, part of what led me to co-found Weaving Earth was that question, and to stand, well, at the moment I'm sitting, but to sit, stand, and say, it's not extreme. We are nature. We are nature working. We are part of the whole. And if we don't remember ourselves, literally remember ourselves again as a part of the whole system, then how will we gracefully dance into this great turning? Because the other side of the coin that Joanna Macy speaks to, she calls it the great unraveling. And she says that we're at this threshold where both are true. There's this unraveling happening of some of the systems that have been degrading the earth, and have been also degrading the social systems and all of these things. And then there's also this great turning where we're turning into a paradigm that's not so focused on just industrialized growth, and is also focused on life-sustaining communities, which is both a turning forward and also a looking back. So it's a potent moment that we're in, this threshold. And I feel like even since those phrases got coined, we've already been transitioning, and that might be because I live in a little bit of a bubble. But I have the sense that we might all be living in a similar bubble, just that you came and you're a part of the Manzanita school. But, I feel thankful that some of the tools and techniques and concepts that are pulling us into this great turning are becoming more mainstream. Because I remember when I was looking to go to college, I had to create something. Like the sustainability word wasn't even, like, you couldn't really find that, And now, to celebrate, I don't know, 5 seconds ago, the University of Vermont just released this new master's program that we've been helping to develop that is focused on how do we create leaders that are really equipped to meet the changes that are ahead that we may not even know. So that feels like, that hasn't been that long. So that feels like a success. And that's also one of the guiding questions that caused us to co-found Weaving Earth. So, yeah. Our tagline at Weaving Earth, we call ourselves the Center for Relational Education. And part of why we chose that is because the way that we see education and life in general is that it needs to be relational. Like the sign needs to affect. the room, because it does. And to pretend that it doesn't, you know, is a disservice to the interaction or to what's happening. So how to be in this truly relational way and really root ourselves in relationship to the whole and then live and act from that place. And so part of what we believe is that if our identity really is rooted in that relationship, then from that place, our design choices, our actions can't help but plan for many generations ahead and in response to and out of appreciation for many generations in the past. And that in itself just puts us in a long, beautiful lineage of humanity. So, you know, that's why the relational education, and I know that that's very in line with Manzanita, so I'm thankful to be here. I'm thankful that you all said yes courageously to this new 32-year-old school. It's potent to say yes in that way, and, you know, vote with your dollars and with your children and say, I love you and believe in you enough that here's an opportunity, and then see what they do with it. So I just really thank you all. It's good. I got the pleasure this morning to sit with, what do they call themselves? The mentors, which stands for something that ends in rebels. That's the main word I could remember. And they're a really beautiful group of people dedicated to not just the school culture, but the extended community culture too. And that feels strong. So I just wanted to celebrate that too. And just that you would show up Saturday night, you know, and come and be a part of this Manzanita event also feels strong. So, you know, it's, I think, imperative that as we're supporting our young ones to grow, that they're rooted in healthy community too. And that they also see that we're the adults, the parents, the grandparents, we're on the ride too. You know, we're in it ourselves. And so just thank you for that. Yeah. Okay, so now, please, will you just do me the pleasure of turning to someone next to you and share with each other one thing that you're feeling thankful for in this moment? Okay, so make sure you thank the person for sharing. Sweet. Well, for all else that we didn't just say, I'll just put a blanket of gratitude over the many things that support us to be here. And sometimes we forget the road workers, all those people that stand out late at night and help work on the roads that help us to arrive safely. So all those people and things that sometimes we forget to be thankful for, I'll just put a blanket of gratitude over those things too. So, I'm struck, Paul, by the timeline. It puts into context, gosh, it was just, I don't remember what you said, but it wasn't that long ago that slavery ended. It puts into context why we're still so in the ripple of some of what that is and still detangling from that, you know, because it ended and there's still a ripple. I think that one really important thing that will help move us toward the great turning is to cultivate a sense of belonging. I'm working mostly with adults now, and the thing that I hear most consistently is that they don't feel like they belong. And besides that, they say, I have a really loving family. I feel really loved from my family. I love my family. And yet there's still this unmet sense of belonging that is missing. And so we work a lot with people around how to cultivate, again, a sense of belonging. Because without that, it's hard to then take the seat and say, okay, this is who I am and what I'm here to do. And it's hard to listen to that gut feeling or the intuition. Because I find that oftentimes we hear it. Like the most common theme that I hear is that I heard what my gut was saying, but then the listening to it is hard. And what we found is as we help people to cultivate more of a sense of belonging, the listening to that intuition or that gut feeling becomes easier. So sense of belonging is extremely important, I think, in moving us towards this, the attributes of the Great Turning, which, just to name a few, really for me are embedded in a strong paradigm of connection. And the thing is that we're already all have a strong, the universe is agreeing.
I really like that point you made.
I like that. I just had an idea. Ding. I just want to be clear that I definitely am of the belief that we already have this connection. It's not like, oh, here we go, we're going to now give you a connection that you don't already have. Like, that's crazy. The connection's already there. And we also need each other to help enliven it or strengthen it or remember it in those moments when we kind of forget or the mind gets busy or we get distracted and we need a little bit of a reminder. So some attributes of this Great Turning that I would like to move towards is really a paradigm of connection and interrelationship, and where each individual is really rooted in a sense of belonging. And nature is, time in nature, I pause long before I use that word, I'll tell you why in a second, but nature and time in nature is so important and imperative to helping to cultivate the sense of belonging, these feelings of connection, and also this identity rooted in relationship to the whole. I pause when I say nature because I'm just going back to my book report, and we are nature also. So we're in nature right now. It's not like I need to go up to the redwood forest to be in, or we're not near the redwood forest. Where are we?
Chaparral.
Chaparral, thank you. I'm from the redwood forest area. But it's not that we need to go to the chaparral or the redwood forest to be in nature. We're always in nature. We are nature. And so, you know, I'll use that word kind of interchangeably, but I just wanted to put it out there that that's really the bias that I'm coming from. But time outdoors, time with the trees, time with the rocks, time with the birds, quality time with each other, quality time alone, all of these things really help to cultivate this connection, this relationship, this sense of belonging. But without also a community of mentors, or an intact community or an intact village also supporting those relationships, those connections, those sense of belonging, it doesn't happen really in the same way, and it definitely doesn't happen as fast. Another sort of crowd that we tend to attract are folks that have spent a lot of time in the wilderness and a lot of time alone. And oftentimes they'll say, well, I really love the trees, I really love the river, and I actually can't stand people. Like, if the people would just get out of here, we'd be fine, you know? And I'm not happy, and I don't really feel like I belong, and like, what is it? Like, what's my next thing? So when we then work with them with some of the mentoring tools that we're going to talk about, what they say is, wow, I have been spending a lot of time with that bird, and now I have a different, stronger relationship to that bird in a way that I couldn't have had before. And we see this with the young ones too. When they're held in a way that their stories are being caught, their stories are being witnessed, their curiosity is being fostered, they're already fully connected beings just get basically turned on. It's like bzzz, and they become activated or tap into this online sort of wireless internet system, like the wild internet, really. Intranet, one of my elders calls it that. He calls it the intranet of healthy human connection. So it's important, yes, that in the Manzanita school there's these hawk days where there's time in nature. I'm so happy about that. I just want to broadcast that schedule globally and say, look, it's working, it's possible to blend that also with, you know, classroom education, and it's important. And it's not just time in nature, it's also time in nature with mentors, and mentors who are dedicated to drawing on the curiosity, drawing out the questions, and helping each person really follow their own aliveness. Somebody really wonderful who works at Manzanita today said that they're witnessing this difference from being a teacher earlier, where the idea really was, how do I get the students to just get through this curriculum, or really get, you know, this, what we need to cover, into how do I get the students to ask the right questions. That is just like, I was so thankful to hear that. And it's important, because if it's true that we're in this time of great turning and this time of great change, and we can't actually see what we're headed into, and we don't know what's going to happen with climate change and the social structures and all of these things, then what we need are the next generation of leaders who are equipped with the tools to ask the right questions, and an identity rooted in relationship to the whole, so that they can make the decisions based from those places, and ask the right questions to live our way really into the future in a good way. So, you know, thank you for doing that. Are you with me? Does that make sense?
Oh.
Yeah? Yeah, feel free to like shout out things like, actually, I totally disagree, or yeah, rock on, like whatever, it's all fine. So nature time, yes, is important, and then strong culture of mentoring, and I want to dissect the word mentoring a little bit, because mentoring, even that word, that concept, has been a little bit branded. And it's been interesting, we've been doing just some like mild questionnaires for, well, what is it? What is mentoring? What does that mean? And just also looking online at different mentorship programs. And one thing that I really appreciate about the Nature Connection mentoring model is that it is really saying, okay, yes, I may have more life experience than someone I'm working with, and what is it that's really lighting them up? So maybe the topic is science, but if their gateway, let me be a little more specific than science because that's very broad. Maybe the topic is, I don't know, give me something.
Chemistry.
Sure, chemistry. Maybe the topic is chemistry. What's the gateway that's going to get them interested in chemistry? Is it mushrooms and the amazing thing that's happening underground with the mushrooms, and how when die-off from the trees in the leaves happens, there's a correspondent friend way miles away from another tree that sends the exact right amount of nutrients through the mycelium to that tree to make it be able to live anyway like it had the leaves again? I mean, that's like mind-blowing. So is that the gateway? Like, what's the gateway in? And to allow each student to follow their own gateway, and then the world becomes, you know, so expansive and their oyster, as somebody said once. So that piece feels important, because it's not, and now I'm going to impart everything that I've done, you know, because that can be a box, it can be a limitation. And part of the goal is that those that we're working with take it way beyond where I can go or where you can go, you know, and that to me will be a regenerative culture. And also the balance, we were talking about this today, the balance of not just the new idea, you know, because youth tend to want to shake it up and, oh no, mom, that's not cool, I got a new idea, you know. But so to have the spark of the new idea, but also have it be rooted in healthy lineage. And so I think as parents, as mentors, as community members, one of the most powerful things we can do is really get to know our own story. And to share that with our children. You know, like what is your lineage? And within that, there's so many stories, and some of them are probably hard. And what is it to, you know, meet the hard stories in a way together that just says, well, this is a part of our story. It's a part of our family line. I live on the Russian River now in Sebastopol because the Russians conquered the native people there. You know, like that's a part of my story. And so then how can I live on the Russian River as someone from Russia way back when, and be in right relationship with the indigenous folks who live in that area? And how can I not get caught in, you know, guilt or shame or blame or retribution, but just be like a witness to, well, that's part of the historical context, that's part of the story, and how do we meet that, you know, together in a good way? How do we truly ally? So just to say it again, I think one of the most powerful acts that we can do is to really get to know our own story. And I think that if our children can hear, well, what got me to this seat right now is a question that I asked when I was in 10th grade. All of a sudden, the questions that they're asking in 10th grade become like important, you know, as opposed to like confused or not held or not received. So the story of the day, I think you talked about that before, yeah, is important to receive their stories, and it's also important for them to receive yours. So we could maybe even stop there, because that's how much I believe in that one. But you know, do with that what you will. And part of what that asks of us also is to be in a way of reconciliation, I think, because there is stuff in our stories that is both, you know, beautiful and hard. So just to say, if that stirs anything in the room that feels like, you know, however it feels, that it's okay, it's welcome. It's important that that you all, as the parents, also get to know each other in ways that forms true relationships, because I think that it will be important that not only are they having the strong mentorship during those hawk days, but that they know their friends' parents in a way that they can report, you know, say, well, this happened for me, I have a story for you, and just share that way. And so I just wanted to emphasize that piece too. Another piece that I think is important, you know, the topic was mentoring, and the tagline that we put on mentoring is relationship leads and information follows. And I'm gonna get there, but it feels important to have like this community cultural context first. So, you know, it wasn't actually a part of the plan to do it that way, but I think that's what makes sense. Because I want to go back to this sense of belonging. Ideally, the sense of belonging is being cultivated at each life stage around the wheel. So at birth, at pre-adolescence, at adolescence, in the 20s, and on up into adulthood and leadership and elderhood, and also as we're exiting and into the death phase. You know, that there's a sense of belonging all the way through. And another piece that we've seen as invaluable is to have our young ones and our adults as well be really honored in the transitions that they're experiencing around the life wheel. So that can look like really big things, like a birth happens, and how do you then acknowledge the birth of that child in a good way? How do you acknowledge the shift that that then is for the mother, for the father, for the auntie, for the sibling, for whoever it is? In this coming of age time, how do we honor the coming of age time in a really good way? For those that feel that they are male, for those that feel that they are female, for those that they feel that they are both or neither. You know, how to do that in a really good way and held in a community context. And, you know, there's so many big ones that we could say all the way around the wheel. And also, how do we just acknowledge the transition of, wow, I just rode my bike for the first time, or I just went into the bamboo forest alone for the first time, or I just hiked up that rock. I don't even know if you can hike up there, but it looks like I would like to, you know, yes. Whatever it is. So how to really not just witness the stories coming back, but acknowledge and witness for each other and for the youth, like, oh, what I hear is, you know, you feel proud of yourself that you just by yourself went up that rock. And, you know, I really acknowledge that. I remember the first time I did something like that, you know, and just to witness the story in that way and have them, again, get to hear a piece of yours. Does that make sense with me? So, honoring, marking, recognizing thresholds are extremely important, both the big ones and the small ones. Another one I wanted to pull on is something that we call the art of questioning. And we spoke about this a little already, and what it is to really help to draw out the questions in each other and in the youth. But part of how we cultivate that is by asking good questions. And so through the art of questioning, we've kind of said, okay, there's 3 levels of questions. The first question may be a confidence booster. So, for example, if we were talking about a bird, for example, and you were wondering what it is, I might say, and I know that you saw it, and I know that you could see it from where you were, you know, I might say, oh, well, what color was it? So that you could say, it was pink. No, I'm just kidding. It was red. And okay, great. So that's like all of a sudden, like I've asked you something and he said red, he's like answered something, he knew it, it built his confidence. So as many of those that you can do within the art of questioning go over really well. Then a level 2 question will be something like, well, what shape was its beak? You know? And that's all of a sudden going to stretch his mind memory to, well, what shape was its beak? In my memory, it didn't even have a beak. I didn't even think to look for a beak, you know? And then all of a sudden, that's creating new brain patterns for next time he goes out. You better believe that he's probably going to look for the beak. And then if he came back to me the next day and I said, what shape was the beak? And he still didn't know, I would know, okay, he's still not paying attention to the beak. I might keep nudging him on that. Or I might say, well, forget it. He's not into the beak right now. Let's move to the tail, you know? But what is it that's stretching the edge of awareness that they took in? And then as many of those that you can do that helps to expand the awareness so that as us, I don't like to say the young ones because this is so important for us too, as we're out on the landscape, we're, you know, expanding our big picture brain patterning of what we're seeing. So everybody close your eyes for a second. What color shirt are you wearing? And then what color shirt is the person to your left wearing? Okay, I wish the camera was up here to see all the faces that you all just made with that question. So open your eyes. So I don't, now, yeah, check it out. Did you want to look? So one thing that was interesting about that, did you want to look? One thing that was interesting, though, is that some, I noticed, had a big smile, and it looked like the smile may have meant, yes, I know that. Some smiles looked maybe like it meant like, oh, dang it, why don't I remember, you know? And then some faces went like this, you know? So body language tells us a lot about, well, was for that person in that moment a level 1 question or a level 2 question? And then to know that as a mentor and kind of like see if you can get some feedback and then ask more, continue to take them along the ride. I want to say one thing as we're on this art of questioning piece is that giving information is also really allowed. Because so many people will be like, oh, I'm only allowed to ask questions, we can't give info. You know, so, oh, the bird was red. Oh, well, there's only like 3 red birds around here. There's the blah, blah, blah. I wonder if it's one of those. Then all of a sudden, a whole bunch of information was just given. And we can now but we're still on a mystery. Like, which 3 birds was it? Was it high in the tree? Was it low in the tree? And then all of a sudden, there's also like this linking to the ecology of what are the habits of those 3 birds. See, so it's important also to give info along with it, especially if the curiosity vacuum is there. So that's one thing as a mentor that we're looking for is, well, is the person actually curious? Or when I asked that question, was it just like, I don't really care, I just want to go play? And if they want to just go play, that's okay in that moment. And if it's really important for them to know that, like if it's a poisonous plant that I need them to know, how can I really quickly come back to that in a moment where I know that they're also going to be able to take it in? Because if in that moment I'm like, they're not ready for it, they just want to go play, they're already out the door, and I'm like, that's a poisonous plant. Like, likely they're not going to remember it. So for me to check it off my list doesn't really serve. You know what I'm saying? So those are the two levels questions for the art of mentoring. Then there's a third. And the third level we don't use that often. It kind of really depends. But it's one of those questions that just goes, like, interesting. Did you see that it was definitely a bird, or could it have been a squirrel? Or, oh, maybe that was a cardinal. You probably don't have cardinals here. I'm so out of context. What would be a red bird around here?
Robin, the woodpecker.
Oh, duh, a robin. Thank you. Okay, so maybe it's a robin. Where's the closest robin to us, do you think, right now? Something that just takes the mind and just you feel it go like way out to the landscape. Does that make sense? So if you're working like on an internal, it could be something like, oh, well, how did that make you feel? It's generally can be a fairly easy question to answer. Not always. You know, you want to know who you're working with, but generally it can be a fairly easy question to answer. So then a level 3 question might be, well, when's the first time that you felt that? And then all of a sudden, they're linking back to the songline of their life, you know? So it goes beyond, and it might also be a question that might not be answerable for like 2 months, which is a good thing, or 10 years. Or every time you open your journal, you're like, why am I still asking that question, you know? So that's an example of a level 3 question that can be good. So looking for body language is important, getting some feedback, being aware of your own assumptions. Like, well, I saw the smile, I think that it meant that. You know, how can I just like make sure? And also to have some of that be transparent. It's important that as mentors and as parents and as community members, we're on the ride too. You know, so if we're wanting our kids to learn more about the natural ecology, what can we do to also go on that ride? And that may look different, and there may not be the same amount of time and da-da-da, but what can you do to be on the ride too? And especially if, I mean, we just had a group, I'll come back to this in a second, but we just had a group of little ones, and they went out to this park and then created a song line to help the other group find where they were hiding. And it was so beautiful. Songline is basically, I went past this octopus tree and I turned at the red rock and I followed the snake to the tree. You know, and the octopus tree is just a tree that looks like an octopus, and the snake might have actually been a pipe on the ground, but just like some imagery that can help create a mental mind map for where to go. That's, you know, how we use the song line. And one of the little girls was so excited to bring her mom back, and her mom actually went with her. And what I've seen that do now, first of all, she's 5 and she remembered the whole song line. It was long, it was like 20 different steps. She remembered the whole thing, and what I've seen it do to her and her mom and their connection to that place, which is really close to their home, has been profound. One of the things that we're looking at in the children is, are they fully alive? Like, are they just like fully with you? And is every emotion on the spectrum being expressed fully? That's a big one. Like, do they feel safe? So are they fully alive, and how would you know? Because the way that you're fully alive is probably different than the way that I'm fully alive. So that's where, getting back to your question, it really, you know, depends on the person and depends on the relationship, and getting to know, like, wow, you know, I may actually be a little bit quiet, but like when I'm sitting tall, like that's actually me like fully leaning in and engaged. Where for someone else who's more loud and, you know, expressive, that might actually be, ooh, I'm triggered, you know, and it's really different. So paying attention to body language is really helpful. Another one of those attributes is what we call the happiness of a child, which is really, really related to this question that you asked about belonging. Because when we feel safe and like we truly belong, there is just this relaxed, like soft-skinned happiness that is hard to explain. And I want to just tag on the word happiness, because that's also kind of a branded word. Because happiness can mean like, oh, I'm happy. I'm really not, you know? So happiness for me, in the full spectrum of the word, encompasses all the emotions. Because little ones especially are so good at the drop of a hat just crying when something is upsetting. And then also letting it go, and then they're friends again. You know, they may have just been fighting over the sticks, there's a big cry, and then they do that, and then they let it go, and they run off together. So to me, that's an expression of true happiness of a child too. So we look for that in the youth and the adults that we're working with, to say, okay, that's an attribute of connection that seems to be working. And if it seems to be lacking or over-exaggerated, or something's in there, then some of the tools related to that, you know, we have that one out in the East around our 8 Shields wheel. We'll use some tools that help draw out the happiness of a child, which that's for another talk, but there's some good ones that do that. Another thing that we'll look for is vitality. So, you know, is the person healthy? Can I just at the drop of a hat get up and move and go? It's like the mother who's got a kid, you know, in one arm and also down here, and the milk spills, and all of a sudden she just like quickly lets go of the hand, grabs the milk, turns it over, and grabs the hand back, and it happened like that without her thinking. That's vitality. There's electricity in the body. There was no thought. It was just like, that's what I'm here to do. You know, so is there that kind of vitality where there's just this like, I'm already up to help? And some of the things that we'll use, mentoring tools we'll use to help cultivate that, are things like running errands, or tending fire, or hey, can you help grandma unload the groceries, or you know, picking up your room. Little things like that actually really help with strengthening vitality. Another one that we'll look for is there deep empathy, like really, really, truly deep empathy for all of creation? And how can you tell that? Again, like the way that you express empathy may look different than the way I do. And how can I, when I'm harvesting that elderberry, really feel for the life of the elderberry and hold the elderberry stick and see the whole hillside, just as Aldo Leopold saw the whole watershed from the bleeding out wolf. Because it's almost easier to imagine doing that when you see a wolf that you just hunted bleeding out like that. But what is it to, even when you pick up a stone or harvest a plant, also feel that same empathy, or really see how it's connected to the whole in that way? And how to then cultivate that in the children, you know, that one's potent. The sit spot is a really good tool for that. And the tools, techniques that really help with deep listening are really good tools for that. Quiet time is a really good tool for that. Just sleeping, like napping on the earth without a blanket underneath you, is a really good tool for that. walking barefoot is a really good one. Because we're already wired for that. We had to be. Our lives depended on it. You know, it is true. I mean, that the elderberry is a relation just like my grandma. So we're already wired for it. How can we then re-tap into that wiring and, you know, feel that empathy? So that's another attribute that we look for, and that expresses itself in a lot of different ways. Another one is being truly helpful. And we kind of laugh at this one because we sometimes we say that you're truly actually helpful. You know, because there can be this shadow of this one where it's like, let me, oh, you don't want a sandwich? Let me just get it for you anyway. You know, like, I'm gonna be helpful, but is it actually, does he want the sandwich or not? You know? So good to know. So we're paying attention. You know, so when he says no, he actually means yes. So how can I give him the sandwich and be like, you know that when you say no, oftentimes that means yes. I'm going to keep elbowing you about that, you know? So how to cultivate truly helpfulness? Oh my gosh, Chase is rocking this one. Now I'm on camera saying that. But Chase is in our Weaving Earth Immersion program, and that one's been really strong for him. Like, someone comes in and they need something, how to just get up and help right away. We've got families in our immersion program, and it's a couple nights overnight, and every night at the end of the evening, we have volunteers that help carry the little ones to bed for the parents, so that the parents don't have to do it every night for themselves. And just what that does, you know, to the community, to the culture, to have to, you know, help carry the children. Because it can be, that's a tricky thing, to carry someone else's child, and for the parent to trust, like, oh, it's actually okay for you to carry my child to bed, and thank you. You know, so the truly helpful one is potent. So we look for things like that. We look for fully alive. We look for the ability to truly forgive. And we talked about that one a little bit in, you know, the two kids that are fighting over the stick, and then they cry, and then they release, and then they go. But what is it also to truly forgive? Like, getting back to some of those lineage stories, like, well, maybe there's some hard moments in there. How can I truly forgive so that I'm just living forward with love? Like, what is it to actually do that? And one tool that's been really helpful for me on that one is a question that one of my elders, Paul Rayfield, wonderful man, says to always ask the question first, how is this helping me? And what I love about that question is, if I'm upset about something and I ask, how is this helping me, it bypasses, it like moves through forgiveness in a way. It might not, I might still need to go back and do some reconciliation work to fully get the how this is helping me, but it becomes like this North Star that takes me through forgiveness to help me really feel like, well, how is this helping me? So I offer that one as a tool as well. And then one of the main attributes that we're looking for also we call the quiet mind. So those moments when the mind isn't running, when our awareness is expanded. So questions like, well, where's the closest robin to us right now? Quiet the mind. Like, we can't also think about, what am I going to get at the store for dinner? And where's the robin right now? Especially at first. You can kind of build up to that a little bit and still have a quiet mind. But, you know, how to truly be in a quiet mind state. And again, the sit spot is so good for that. Working with fire, anything that's working with your hands, that gets you out of the mind and into the body, are tools or things that we're looking for to say, oh, okay, this is an attribute of connection. There's true connection here. There's interrelationship here. And how do I continue to cultivate that? A lot of what we do at Weaving Earth and in the Nature Connection model is work on tools that are doing the best to quiet the mind. And I know that at Manzanita it's doing that too. And again, this is why we say that relationship leads and then information follows. Because when the mind is quiet and there's a sense of belonging and the relationships are truly there, the information just comes in. And it sticks because there's a sense of peace inside, you know, that's associated with that quiet mind. So, you know, so those are things that we look for and also that we help to cultivate. And that's part of the intention of, you know, this healthy mentoring model. And I don't really like the word model, but I'll use it for now. And also for this deep nature connection time. Is to how do we draw out these attributes that already exist in ourselves? How do we draw them out more strongly and in each of our unique ways so that we can then sit in those attributes and say, okay, here's what I'm here to do, here's who I am, and let me walk forward alongside you together, and we'll live into this great turning in the best way that we can. So, you know, that's the goal. I just want to tell one story. Maybe this can be the closing story that this reminded me of. We work with a local high school, and it's a pretty urban population up in near where I'm from, north of San Francisco. And we took them out. It's a public charter school. We took them out for a week-long wilderness trip. And within the wilderness trip, we gave them a 24-hour solo time. And so we send them out and we do a lot of work with them on what their intention is for going out, and then we send them out and then we hear their story on the return. And this one girl in particular who was so terrified to go, and she had this whole story about how she doesn't like nature and she didn't really get it, but she was like, I have this feeling I'm supposed to go, so I'm gonna go. And she was out there and it had been sunny, 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 and then they're out there for the 24 hours and it just like dumps rain, lightning, dumping rain, super high winds. This is fall, so you know that's not really that common anymore for up there. And so we're like, wow, how are they doing? And it's this whole crazy night. And then they come back and she tells her story, and in her story, she sets up her tent, which is a huge deal for her to set up a tent. It was a really big deal. And to sleep in the tent was an even bigger deal. But she sets up her tent and it starts to rain, and she got inside the tent and it's, you know, midday. And she's in there for a while and she starts to get hungry and she's just hanging out inside her tent and she can hear the rain, she says. And then she just has this thought like, maybe I should just go outside and eat. So she goes just outside of her tent and she sits on this rock and she pulls out her sandwich and she ate her sandwich in the rain. And she talked about how when she was in first grade, her teacher said to her one time when they were outside playing in the rain, you have to come in right now, you can't get wet. Don't be outside in the rain, and like brought her inside. And she and her friends had wanted to eat lunch outside and they got in trouble for doing that. And so she talked about how she ate lunch outside in the rain and it felt so good, and all of a sudden she was like, wow, I could do this again. Like I could go camping. This is kind of amazing. And my reflection for her was, wow, that's, you know, she was a senior, so what is that, 11 years-ish of trauma. Rain is scary. Going outside is scary. Eating outside on the lawn under the rain is scary. And all of a sudden it's healed in one sandwich being eaten in the rain. It was like simple but so profound. And there's so many moments like that where we unintentionally, like when she described that first grade moment, they were just like joyous playing in the rain. Like her connection is like all out there. I am part of the universe. I belong. It's beautiful. And that first grade teacher, probably so unintentionally out of complete love and care for their health and well-being, you know, said, no, you got to get inside. In trouble. All of a sudden, all that connection that was just out there, cut off. And then rain outside is scary, and that's then the story that she grew up with. until the moment that she eats the sandwich in the rain. So we all have stories like that, probably. I don't know if that's true for everybody, but most of us do. So related to your two questions, how can we, you know, as mentors, as community members, just notice, did I just enhance the connection feelers or did I just accidentally cut them? And to, in that moment, have the humility to be like, whoa, I actually think it's fine for you to be in the rain. I'm sorry I just yelled at you. Someone yelled at me once and I just, you know, it's fine. And to just heal it right there in the moment and move forward. And that's, I think, part of how we get out of this paradigm that we're in that you spoke to. So maybe do that with grace, maybe do that well, and may that story haunt us so that, you know, we foster relationship in the best way that we can. And thank you.
Thank you, Mom.